Welcome to the Factory Futurist podcast, where we profile the thought leaders, technologies, and companies revolutionizing high-tech manufacturing. We learn from the best about how they sustain high-performance leadership in technology, their personal life, and their companies. If you're just joining the podcast, my name is Drew Allen. I'm the host, and when I'm not chatting with these fine folks, I'm the VP of Strategic Development at Grace Technologies. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Today on the Factory Futurist, we have Kyle Bermel. He is the COO of Metalcraft Inc. in Mason City, Iowa, and he's been with the company for 8 years. He first started as an RFID engineer and took various roles throughout the organization. Before starting at Metalcraft, Kyle was a failed professional golfer and a D1 women's basketball coach. Kyle and his wife, Sydney, reside in Clear Lake, Iowa, with their 2 kids, Quinn and Parker. I want to give a huge shout out to Kyle as well as all the folks at Metalcraft. They have been instrumental in helping us source materials for face shields that are going to frontline hospital workers and emergency response. Thank you so much, Kyle, and please enjoy this interview. I'm excited to have on Kyle Bermel. He is the COO of Metalcraft Technologies. Welcome to the Factory Futurist.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate being here.
So Kyle, tell me a little bit about what you guys do at Metalcraft and your role there. And then we are going to jump into COVID-19 coronavirus, which I can't believe they named it something that seemed to come out of some sort of apocalypse movie, but they did. So we are
crazy,
all stuck with that name now.
It's
so
crazy.
Tell us a little bit about you and the company.
Sure. Been with the company for 8 years. Metalcraft is a 7-year-old. We'll be 70 years old in November. We're a manufacturer based out of Mason City, Iowa. We make identification products. Started with crash and dead metal nameplates and have grown it into polymer labels and RFID tags and sensors and just keep evolving with the technology.
So when did you start to feel that this pandemic, when did that start to get you acting and going, oh, wow, this is going to be a real thing?
Yeah, I actually, we were very fortunate. We were really proactive on the whole coronavirus situation. We put together a team about a month ago now, and we've been, quarantining or having people self-monitor, I believe is the correct term, for 3 weeks when they had travel or anything like that. I really started to put together a plan on how we were going to handle it. We continue, obviously, as everyone in business. It seems like the plan changes every hour. So that's the difficult part. But we have a good team, a good leadership team at Metalcraft, and we're getting through it so far. So.
Yeah, what is it? Mike Tyson said, everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the mouth.
That's right. And then what we got to do is just get back up and start fighting again.
So talk to me a little bit about what specific actions you guys have taken. I would assume your first kind of point of concern would be your manufacturing production areas, then probably your headquarters staff and your supply chain. You want to start, what specific kind of actions are you guys taking in your production areas?
Yeah, so our actual first action was, even before our response team was put together, we took a very aggressive stance when we saw it happening in China, because some of our supply chain comes from China, specifically on our RFID side. So we took a really aggressive approach and bought up a lot of inventory, and we were holding more inventory than we would typically in any instance. So we wanted to do that as almost as an opportunity, because we saw that supply chain would drown out a little bit, so there wouldn't be product available. That's suited us really well. We also have taken, we started talking about social distancing about when you first heard about it, in the news, the precautions. We had our wellness team talk a lot about hand washing and coughing into your arm. And I think that's been drilled into our people. And then, we kept taking steps, obviously remote work, just like most everyone else. We took some precautionary steps that I was pretty proud of too, for the members that we didn't want to expose. We took steps to get them working from home sooner than anyone else before it was really prevalent in the U.S. So those are some of the things we did early on, and now we're shifting hours around. Trying to get less people in the manufacturing facility at all times, right? So we're starting 4 hours earlier than we normally would, and having less overlap in those shifts, and things like that. They open up lunches and break time so people aren't interacting with each other as much. So those are really some of the things.
That's great.
We've even went to the point of getting those plans in place and all the product and material for what happens when a member gets the virus, and how do we respond? How long do we have to be down? Things like that.
So I think a lot of us are probably on the press. I mean, I'm not trying to be, Dr. Doom over here, but I think a lot of us are on the precipice of having members who potentially, contract the virus here maybe in the next couple weeks. So what actions are you guys looking at taking specifically after one of your employees go ahead and test positive?
Yeah, so we've put in place a plan following CDC guidelines on response for that. So what we will do is, obviously, everyone will be out of the facility. We'll likely let the facility sit for 24 hours after we know of contact, just to let everything settle in the air. We'll shut down the air moving systems so that we're not spreading it throughout the facility any more than it already has. And then we'll bring a crew in, and I've already designated a team. We already have offsite, all of our equipment offsite, and then we're just going to go in and basically scrub the whole facility, bleach and sprayers and Tyvek suits and masks and all of the shields that we've been talking about, right? And those people are going to go in and clean that thing head to toe. We expect it to take 2 days with our size of facility. So if and when that does happen, we're looking at a downtime of 3 days. We've also taken, we have some mission critical products that have to go out daily. We've taken the stance to get into another facility as our backup facility. We've moved product and equipment over to that facility as a backup, so that we can't be, because with that line, we can't be down, right? We had a flood in 08, 09, 08, and that laser or that product line was running the next day. So, I mean, it can't be down. And we take the precautions to keep our customers up and running.
So all of those activities, when you say them now, oh yeah, well, yeah, we should definitely, that's easy. Okay. But the actual implementation of that and the decision-making processes and all of the conversations that you're having around that must be making your life pretty interesting. In the last, I guess, 2 months, 1 month, how are you doing personally? Are you starting to kind of feel the fatigue, or are you continuing to kind of remain energized? And how are you, if you are remaining energized, kind of what's the key to that?
Yeah. Well, I've been in a unique situation. Like I said, we've been working on this for over a month, but I had a trade show that I was attending 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago, Modex. It was in Atlanta, Georgia. And we had already taken the precautions knowing that whoever had to travel to this trade show was going to be self-isolating for 7 days. And so I did my 7 days, and I get ready to go back to work, and I get an email from this organization that put on the trade show and said, and there's 30,000 people at this trade show. And this email said, one of the people at the event tested positive for COVID-19.
Oh no.
So yeah, exactly. So I'm like, okay, well, I guess it's 7 more days, right? Because I already did 7. I'm ready to go back. I'm energized because I want to see my people. I want to see the members, especially during this difficult time. And, today was the first day that I was actually able to get back with the team. And it's tough. It's tough doing all of these communications and all of these moving parts, doing it remotely. and not having, that's one of my strength is being with the people and being able to read how they're responding to our communications and how the flow of the factory's going or the facility's going, and that's hard being away. So it was really nice today getting back into that.
Yeah, so it made you at least feel a part of the team now, I guess.
Exactly.
So while you were remote, or even today, how are you kind of counseling your team leaders, your managers?
Yeah.
What's kind of your guys' true north, and how have you been counseling them through this kind of difficult time?
We like I said at the beginning, we have a really strong team. I don't need to do much counseling. I think the key for me is I just have to keep a level head and challenge when I need to, let them take it when, let them take the reins when I think it's fitting too. But the team, I'm not worried about them. They do a great job. And we all know that we're in it for the members. We're an ESOP, employee owned company. So, or a majority ESOP. And, our goal is to take care of those members and the members will take care of our customers, and that'll keep business going. So, that's really the true north that you speak of. And it has been for a lot of years at Metalcraft, even before I was there. So that it makes it easier on me. So, and just the team being so good as well.
How do you feel your industry is going to handle this potential recessionary event? And how are you guys looking at potentially handling some of the more economic issues, as well as, have you seen any direct effect from your customers on purchasing behavior yet?
Yeah, we've started to see a little slowdown in purchasing. We've seen some projects that were, even POs submitted that they wanted to put on hold. So we have seen that, especially from the non-essential business. From an industry standpoint, the industry that we're in, and we're kind of unique in our industry because, our competitors, one might make one of our product lines, another competitor might make another one of our product lines, but there's only a couple people that make all the product lines that we do, and are really agnostic across the industry. But all of them were deemed essential. A lot of our competitors are in areas that have been forced to shelter in place. And as we look at the directive, a lot of us are deemed essential because we sell into healthcare or the Department of Defense or ag and food, and there's just a ton of industries that we cover, and we just gotta keep going through this and bringing people to work.
Yeah, we're in the same boat. We supply to a lot of pharma companies and food companies, and so we're in the same boat. However, I got to be honest. I was reading through the executive order that came out of Illinois, because we're in the Quad Cities, so we're on the Iowa-Illinois border.
Okay.
And I'm reading through this and I'm going, what businesses are actually shut down?
Exactly, right.
It's just like, how you deem this essentialness is kind of crazy. I read through that, and besides bars and not being able to go to bars and restaurants, everything else seemed basically essential. I guess maybe they shut down like spas and haircutting.
Yep.
But eventually eventually you're going to have to be able to get a haircut.
My barber called me the other day. Is like, "Hey, I'm gonna have to close for a week." I'm like, I hope it's only a week because I got to get this baby cut.
So you mentioned, Metalcraft has been in business for 75 years, correct?
70 years. Yeah, we're going to be 70 years old in November.
Is there any folklore in your company about how you guys have handled previous crises? And has that been any guiding force today?
Absolutely. We've had great leadership at Metalcraft since the beginning. You have to be 70 years old. The flood of '08 really struck hard at Metalcraft. We were in a low-lying area in our previous facility. We have since moved, so we're out of that floodplain. But we had a 100-year flood and put the the first floor of the building, 8 foot underwater, and took a lot of inventory out. We were pulling. I wasn't involved at the time. I was in college, but they were pulling equipment out as fast as they could. And like I said already, they had one of the lines up and running the next day. So yeah, that's really done it. And then right after, the flood of '08 becomes the financial crisis as well. So, driving us through that, we actually, our current CEO was the president at the time, and he was able to really give direction to the company at that time. And I'm really grateful that he's involved and doing the same thing now.
How do you feel you guys are adapting your sales and marketing organization? I mean, I know you're not the VP of sales, but you must be having a little bit of insight. What are some kind of tactics and strategies you guys have shifted to in the last few weeks as travel has basically been shut down?
Yeah, absolutely. Our VP of sales has done a really good job of getting his team in line and having them put together individual strategies for their separate territories. Knowing that they are not traveling, they're not door to door with customers. So how are we going to sustain and continue to get that business? We've looked at products that we currently haven't gone after, or projects that we currently haven't gone after, to keep the machines running, as they would say. And that's been beneficial as well. From a marketing standpoint, our marketing team they've done more marketing blasts on different topics than in the last 2 weeks than we have probably in the last 2 months. So it's been very good there. Just targeting different industries that, could potentially be affected, or that we could potentially help move past this, with remote work. A lot of IT assets flying around, going to people's homes. We do a lot of tagging of IT assets, and we also, with a new business we started a couple of years ago, we also have a software platform that can help people tag those assets. So we've done a lot of pushes on that, and seen some good results too. So
fantastic. I want to go back to inventory for a minute. Mm-hmm. I think that one of the areas in this country that has been deeply exposed is potentially the supply chain risk that we have all over the place.
Absolutely. Yep.
Since the 80s, I don't know what portion of manufacturing in total kind of moved offshore, but we are, and it does not seem to be like multi-source inventory systems are actually that common these days to begin with. It seems like there's usually one kind of major source. And, how are you guys reevaluating your inventory and your supply chain? It seemed like you made a good move then, but how are you gonna change your thinking on that moving forward?
Yeah, we are for sure. We the fortunate thing with this is we did this exercise about a year ago, and we identified a second source for pretty much every product that we have. Now, the problem was we identified those, but we never switched and bought, from the other source as much as we were buying from the original source, right? You never do.
Right.
But we at least had them identified. And through this process and through this, the virus, we've had to rely on that second source, which has been, I will call a challenge, just because, now you're telling customers, hey, this is not the exact same product that you just ordered. Here's the modification. Here's the change notice. And we've had to do that. And I think, why we didn't do it in the first place is because we didn't want to have to do that, as opposed to speccing that type of thing in at the onset of the projects.
Yeah. Are you guys, and most of your kind of suppliers are over in China, or are you also working on identifying suppliers in the States?
Yeah. So we only have one real product line that's dependent on China. And that's our RFID line. otherwise, we're in good shape from a made in the USA standpoint. There's not a lot of RFID inlays that are made in China. There are some in Mexico. We do have manufacturers in the US, and we've been working with them as well. And we have worked with them in the past, but we're working with them more now because of what's going on and what has transpired.
So if you had the kind of the glass looking into the future, how do you think ultimately this is going to change your guys' company? And what kind of creativity are you already seeing, or new product lines that are getting dreamt up? Or you guys, a lot of time need is necessity is the something of invention.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. With us, I don't necessarily know if it's going to be a new product line, but what I really like and what I've seen the team, doing is how responsive we've proven that we can be, the adaptability that everyone's had. And obviously it's easier when there's something like this going on too, right? But just how quick they've adapted to, working at home or any of the changes that we've made based on the virus. I mean, just they've been fast. They've been accepting, and in December we switched over ERP systems, right? And that's not like necessarily fast or accepting. We've proven that we can do that, and I think one of the things that everyone's going to get out of this is, hey, we can work remotely, right? Pretty effectively, and in some cases more effectively than we were. So I think that'll be, something we take out of this as well. But, just the camaraderie of the team, and, anytime there's a crisis like this, you see that a lot in teams, especially really good teams, how they rally around one another. And I think that's good in the short term. And then obviously you got to keep it sustained, but that'll help us for a couple of years.
So I really love to ask this question, and the question is what have you changed your thinking on in the last few years? And I feel like it's a lot less appropriate now, because I feel like everyone's changed their thinking on almost everything in the last few weeks or days. But if there is something that stands out, I would love to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, the question of the last few years, I've put a lot more focus on the human to human interaction and the members, and what they mean to me and what I need to mean to them, and that's really been. But right now in the situation we're in, and this is recency bias, but right now it's changing. My thinking's changing every hour, 2 hours, because of the information that comes in. And I think that's a positive too, because we need to be able to respond like that right now in this type of circumstance. So yeah, from a long-term standpoint, it's definitely the people. From a short-term standpoint, it's the reliance on the team. It's how adaptable they are, things like that.
So if you had a few minutes with your frontline folks, or in another company as well, mm-hmm. you had some pieces of advice as they're moving through this crisis. Your frontline folks, your managers, and your executive leadership. If you could give each of those kind of groups a piece of solid advice, what would you tell them
for this situation? You're saying?
Yes, or I mean, it's just too fresh not to go there, right?
Yeah.
but yeah. Or crises like this in general.
I mean, with crises like this, you have to have an open mind. You have to be able to adapt quickly, and you have to know that you have to make the best decision with the amount of information that you have currently. And I've had to tell some of my leader managers that, in the past couple of days, things are changing so fast. We can only make the decisions based off of the information that we have, right? If things change to a degree that we need to change our decision, we will do that at the point when we have that data. And that's I guess, in this circumstance, probably the best advice I could give.
How are you guys mechanically? How are you guys creating that information flow? Are you guys doing daily stand-ups? How often are you checking? What's the actual mechanics look like and tempos in your company?
Yeah, we've done a lot of new things just because of this, right? I mean, we have our business continuity team meeting every day, right? We're having leadership meetings that are likely every other day. Sometimes they're 2 days, two per day. We've implemented Microsoft Teams, or like a Slack type channel where, because we know people are going so crazy right now. I mean, working on so many different things right now, you could leave a message and wait for that response, and it doesn't have to be email. So, I mean, we're doing all sorts of new things to try to get us through this.
I don't know about you, but man, I feel like we and my team and the entire company, I mean, it's like the productivity has just gotten amped up. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like everyone is just doing the best that they can right now. And it's exciting. And I mean, we use Slack, and I don't know how we would have done this, but before without Slack.
Yeah. Have you guys been using it for a while?
So funny story there. I found out about Slack years, like I must have found out about it like maybe a year after it launched or something. Like it was pretty fresh, and I just could never really get the company to adapt to it. And then when we did an acquisition, our CTO and one of my direct reports they were just like, we got to use something. I was like, well, I tried Slack. No one really wanted to. They're like, oh, we'll use Slack. And then it kind of did this groundswell that I had nothing to do with,
Yeah.
And now everyone uses it and loves it. I'm like, well, we used it 5 years ago. But no, we started using it like pretty much in earnest, I think about 2 years ago.
Okay.
Maybe, yeah. But it's been the communication. I mean, we track like how our kind of the Grace family feels about our communication, from the team and everything. We do like this kind of yearly report thing, and definitely those scores have dramatically improved since we've done integrated Slack.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, Teams I think is great as well. But yeah.
I like them both. I use Slack for a couple of organizations that I'm a part of, and they have their own channels, and yeah, Slack is good. I think our CIO just went with Teams because it was there and available, and we had some separate groups using it, so we just went with that one.
Yeah. Well, what would you like to ask if you could ask the listeners for one thing, what would you ask for at this point?
Well, from a short-term standpoint, I would ask them about how they're responding, right? Because everyone they have to handle this differently, and everyone has different aspects of their business and how they're going to handle this pandemic, right? And how they are handling it. So in the short term, I guess I would ask them that question. In the long term, I'm more focused on how they improve themselves on a daily basis, right? I like personal development. So,
what do you do for your personal development?
I do a lot of reading. I do a lot of self-reflection. Those are my two. I try to have a mentor throughout the year. I haven't gone as far as like a paid coach, but I've been evaluating it, and then I'm part of a couple associations that give you that type of front end, I would say. So,
tell me a little bit more about the self-reflection. What does that practice look like for you?
Sure. I mean, just trying to understand, how my actions come off, and everyone has an understanding of what they perceive, right, in while something's happening. But if you can really do self-reflection after the fact and say like, okay, well, what did that person really think I was saying, or why did they respond how they did because of some action or another? Or it doesn't even have to be just about you, but in a group setting or whatever it may be. But, I try to use that as a tool to say, how would I handle it differently? Or maybe I did a great job. Maybe I didn't, but what could I have done differently to make that situation even better, or to make that employee, or that member, think even more of themselves? Or, that's the type of personal reflection I'm talking about.
Fantastic. Well, I think we're all going through a lot of personal reflection right now. So
that's right. We need to be, right?
Yeah. The fire is definitely purifying a lot of things. So
yeah.
No, well, hey, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And I wish you guys the best. And I hope all your employees are healthy and safe as we get through this crazy, crazy thing.
Yeah, Drew, I appreciate the time too. And likewise with your company and organization and your employees as well. You guys got to stay safe, and I wish you guys the best.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for listening. I'm Drew Allen. We look forward to seeing you in the next episode.